Well, she's a popular writer, speaker, podcaster, and author of Dirt, Growing Strong Roots and What Makes the Broken Beautiful. And she knows a thing or two about adaptability, brokenness, and reconciliation. Plus, she's going to help us if we're stuck and just can't make a change. Welcome, Mary Marantz, to the show.
Oh, Melinda, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, so your story is incredible, but I really want to focus in within the story about adaptability and change. Talk to us about how you had to adapt and change through your life and the importance of following God's plan for you.
There is this element that's woven through my story of what does it look like to start out a place and maybe that's a hard season of your life, maybe that's a hard part of your story, and to love and thank that part of your story
Mm.
for who it's going to make you, while also knowing like the story does not end here. This is not the last page. And I felt like very early on God said to me, just wait. This is going to make sense someday. I'm going to put words to it. I'm going to help you write this story. And not only will your story not be wasted in your own life, but it's going to be something that other people can look to and say, one of my favorite lines is from Morgan Harper Nichols. She says, maybe you've been given this mountain to show other people it can be moved. And so
Oh.
I'm a big fan of, we were not created to stay in one storyline, to stay in one form of ourselves. It takes different forms at different parts of our lives,
Mhm.
and that can change. And leaning into that versus resisting it. I think about this, the clay that has actually been softened and is malleable and is open to that change. Versus if we harden to that, we're going to, and leaning into that versus resisting it. I think about this, the clay that has actually been softened and is malleable and is open to that change. Versus if we harden to that, we're going to break under that change.
And your story, that's powerful, Mary. But for your story too, I mean, looking back at your life before, would you
Mm,
ever dreamed or expected that you would be where you are today? If it
never.
wasn't for making the change and being adaptable to what things that were happening.
Yeah, I think they always say, I always feel like faith makes a lot more sense in hindsight than looking forward, but the nature of faith is the things of not that are not seen.
Mhm.
And so I can look back and I can see how every step was building on something else and how God was giving little hints of what was to come. I was 5 years old putting on my grandma's pink Sunday school suits and pretending to be a lawyer. Never did that girl in the trailer imagine that that story was going to include something like Yale Law School, which is the number one law school. Elle Woods would have you believe it's Harvard, but it's actually Yale. And like what? Like it's hard. And I think that's the thing is like God rarely operates in this like I'm gonna show you the real of all the things that are going to come. He really likes to just hint. He's like a father with like Christmas morning,
Mhm.
right? So he loves that surprise, but he might give you a little hint of what's coming.
So, Mary, adaptability is worth it. Making change and following God's plan is worth it.
Oh my gosh. I think back so many times on our lives, and honestly, Melinda, we're in the middle of one of those seasons. I think that's important. Some people can look at this book and go, "Cool, trailer to Yale Law School. Great. She's already in that like the adaptability is worked. She got the happy ending." But at the very same time, my husband and I are in the middle of one of those having to adapt, having to live the story not working out the way we thought it would, and trying to start our family. We've been working on that for 6.5
Mm.
years. And I have to be in the middle of that, believing that even though I could write the story and the script for God, and in my mind, that's like the perfect season finale, that he has been faithful enough times in the past where what he had for me was so much better than what I could imagine that I have to trust that again. One another favorite quote is God's past faithfulness demands my present trust. I heard that from
Beautiful.
Audrey Roloff. And, I think I would like to write the script where it's like, we went out to this conference the very first time I openly talked about us struggling with that. And the very next year we would walk out and I would be holding that baby or have a giant belly.
Mhm.
And that would be this like perfect, like reveal moment. And I did not get that as my like finale episode. And so I'm in the middle of having to hold on to that faith of a hard season, a dry season, a disappointing season, that there's something better God has planned.
You are, Mary, I think just the honesty of what you shared and your faithfulness to God.
Mm.
Thank you. That really means a lot. And as we look and we sort of conclude the show in adaptability, I so appreciate your words to your new book, Dirt, to your life, And we'll be praying for you as you're adapting and hoping for a family. And I'm just so appreciative that you were able to be with us today. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for having me.